Today's episode is brought to you in part by Liquid Death. Murder your thirst with 100% mountain water from the Alps, made by nature, not in a lab. Available both still or sparkling, Liquid Death is infinitely recyclable in tall boy cans, just like beer, and never in plastic. Get a case delivered to your house today at unitedwedraink.com/liquiddeath, and you can get a free koozie pack by using the code FREEKOOZIEAF. That's FREEKOOZIEAF at checkout. Just add any Liquid Death koozie pack to your cart, use the code, buy some water, and get these sweet-ass koozies for free with your thirst-murdering water. From Liquid Death at unitedwedrink.com/liquiddeath. Now enjoy the show. The opinions and statements in this podcast do not represent those of the host's employers, coworkers, family, or imaginary friends. Now enjoy the show.
Happy hour? More like amateur hour. Welcome to United We Drink.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the only beer podcast in a state with a piece of shit governor that tells the feds to fuck off and then asks for their help, not named Texas. Welcome to United We Drink, right here on unitedwedrink.com, as well as Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, and wherever fine podcasts are found. My name is Mike Urevich, and I'm here all alone on this intro. So you know what that means. That means it is an interview podcast. That means we have a guest here today on this episode. We have Phil Clark. Phil Clark is a very early adopter to the podcast phenomenon that is now radio, pretty much, right? It's radio. He runs the Brit and Yankee craft beer podcast, Pubcast, as they sometimes call it. I look at their logo. I look at their website. They go back and forth on it. Phil, pick one. Stay in your lane, maybe. He has been doing this podcast about beer in the Chicagoland area since 2007. The word podcast was coined in 2004. Jesus fucking Christ. Phil is a lovely man. He is a Brit who now lives in the Chicagoland area, the suburbs of Chicago, West Chicago, if you will. And he talks about a lot of the beers in that Chicago area, and especially likes to stay on those suburban area breweries. It's no disrespect to those breweries in the Chicago proper area, but he lives out in that area and he wants to spotlight the breweries in that area. And we had a really fun conversation with him. Phil knows Kevin, our new podcast host here, co-host, because he showed Kevin around the Chicago area when he did a collaboration with Church Street Brewing up in that area, and that's how this all came about. You know, friends helping friends, and we have a podcast because of that. So this was a lot of fun because Phil is a very opinionated person. He is not Phil, who was previously on this show. He doesn't say as much as Phil previously on the show does. He doesn't say nearly as much as I say so that's a good thing. And we were really happy to have this conversation. We had a lot of fun. We got roasted a little bit by him. We roasted him a little bit back again. Just a fun, good conversation about beer, about Chicago, about cans, about just about everything. Well, not just about everything, but maybe we can get into more of the everything. I'm not going to give you, there was an I'm not going to give you a really long-winded Mark Maron style podcast intro here. Let's just get into talking with Phil Clark from the Brit and Yankee Craft Beer Podcast right here on United We Drink.
All right, man. Well, I mean, I guess we can just kind of, as long as Joel and Phil are not going to start fighting about Chicago-related things anytime soon, we can start getting into talking about beer.
I'm gonna drink my beer. I'm gonna pour my beer.
Your beer. What do you got there?
Well, isn't that what question that you ask on the show?
This can be the show. We're recording.
Why can't it already be the show?
Okay, I am drinking from Art History Brewing, which is a new brewery in Geneva, Illinois. I've been around for like about a year and a half, and they produce the best Yorkshire bitter on cask that I've tasted outside of England. I will put that up against Speckled Hen, which is not that good these days, but I'm drinking their Goodnight Bamberg, which is a favorite style of mine, a Rausch beer.
Oh,
and
I love
I
Rausch
would
beers.
say this is a fantastic beer outside of Bamberg. Cheers.
You saw the big thumbs up from Mike over there on the screen for a
I love
Rausch
it.
beer.
I'm a big smoke beer fan. Speaking of good Rausch beer from your area, I've had the Rausch beer from Dovetail in Chicago. An excellent beer. I have yet to pull the trigger on buying a whole box of all their smoked beers because I know they have a Rausch Doppelbock, they have the Grodzitsky, they have a Rausch Weissen. They're just a fantastic brewery that makes
sounds like
lagers.
a German game show host.
Yeah.
Ralph Schreitzen here presenting tonight.
Welcome to Sprockets.
Yeah.
So, gentlemen, Phil, I'm so happy to have you on. I've been on your show on multiple occasions talking about Barrel of Monks and Odd Breed. And those that don't know, our connection, when I was up doing a collaboration beer with Church Street for Barrel of Monks, it feels like yesterday, but it's now like 3-4 years ago, I think, something like that. You were kind enough to basically shepherd me around all over the suburbs of Chicago. We went out, we drank beer every single day. You took me to your favorite places. I met brewers, I met people in the know, and, became fast friends. And the fact that I'm now on this show, I figured, hey, listen, let's do another craft beer podcast. Let's get you on. Let's talk a little bit about your area, talk about Chicago, talk about what your feelings are about podcasting, craft beer in general. But that's kind of and actually there's a much longer history, but it's so woven and strange and different tendrils are going in different directions that it's not worth going into right now. But I did want to ask you about your podcast. So I was doing a little bit of research on your website, and I saw that your
More
podcast...
research that he did when he joined our show.
Yeah.
Oh, of course. No, I've known these guys forever. I'm not concerned with anything. So it says on your website, Phil, that your podcast began in 2005. Now,
Yes.
if I do the math correctly, I believe that makes you the first ever podcast. Is that correct?
No.
Go with my narrative. Go with my narrative.
Okay.
No one's going to check this.
All right. Okay. Yes, we were. No.
The first ever podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, we have the first ever podcast host.
When we started out, we didn't actually do too much with beer. Basically, I did it in my basement, which was non-finished. As you see, well, for those who can not see us, which is what you're an audio podcast. Everyone. Which is actually the reason I got into podcasting, because, this is the thing for people with bad, faces. We did beer reviews, and the original Yankee and I just basically did podcasting because a friend of mine got me into it in the first blush of podcasting. He did a podcast every day for 1,800 episodes, which is a lot of podcasting. And then I found out when I was over here that when I lived in England, I was only half a mile from where he lived. So we became firm friends, and he got me into podcasting here. We did actually big production presentations and all local stuff, but then we eventually morphed when craft beer really became hot, into just doing craft beer reviews. So we've been to a lot of breweries around the Chicago area. We tend to stay away from downtown Chicago. We do the suburbs and beyond. There's a couple of guys who do an excellent job down in Chicago called ABV Chicago. I've got my bell here, by the way. I'm going to give it that's our bell that we give a ring to everybody who we mention, and they do a really good job. But we like to stay out in the suburbs and drink some of the beer out there.
So I'm very interested because the three people on this side of it, right, on the United We Drink side, we all work in the industry. We all started out as enthusiasts, each one of us, and got into the industry through brewing, marketing, operations, things of that nature. You are someone who is about as into the craft beer industry as you can possibly be without working for a craft brewery. In the years you've been doing this, and your passion for craft beer is undeniable. It comes across when we're talking about beer. Is there anything you've learned through this podcast, through being a big fan, through following these breweries that's really interesting, that's really strange, really bizarre? Give us something. Give us a tidbit of something you've learned about craft beer from the outside.
Yeah, through drinking beer for 45 years. Yes, and that is that good beer is absolutely good beer, right? Okay, so when you drink a good beer, you know it's a good beer. The trends come and go. I listened to a couple of your podcasts, well, the previous two, and you were ranting on about hard seltzers. And I have to say, and quite now you're X-rated here, so fuck hard seltzers is what I say. Okay, because they're fantastic. If you know, they're not beer, but everybody has to brew them. And I also say fuck hazes because I hate hazes as well. Although
we got thumbs going up, we got cheers, we got all kinds of stuff going on here.
But you do have some that are okay. You know, you get some decent beers. So these trends, I think, are trends for people who are coming into craft beer breweries. Maybe they just don't like beer, so they drink seltzers. I think hazes are training beers, especially those ones that are orange juice flavored ones. And I'm one for, and last week I heard you say, what is a classic style? Well, I think a classic style is a Rausch beer. Okay. So, you know, I like the classic styles, the Vienna lagers, the Helles, you know, the pills, anything that's made well without adding an adjunct is at the top of my list. But I will say there have been some really good adjunct beers that I've tasted over the years. So
maple bacon coffee porter.
I never got that. You know what? I have never had a Funky Buddha beer. Never had one.
I can't respond to that. Anyone else?
There's some good Buddha. It's been a while since I've had a Buddha beer outside of like the core stuff. Because I have Vibin every once in a while and Hop Gun and Floridian, but I don't know the last time I actually had a year of maple bacon, and that was like it put Florida beer possibly on a map for a while there. I still will always go back to Joel and I sitting outside of the lounge and him having way too many than he should probably professionally mention in an evening. It was like the first weekend you ever made it. But the whole classic style thing is near and dear to me because I like classic. I like what I like, and I will admit that I like hazy IPAs, but to me, the best hazy IPAs all kind of taste pretty similar. And they're like, but the bad ones are very far off from the good ones. and I sometimes wonder if classic style is kind of a derogatory term. Like when I see and hear people say legacy brand when referring to like Sierra Nevada or Anchor or New Belgium, even it's like, yeah, they've been around for a long time, but Jesus, like
For good
they
reason.
reinvent themselves. They find new ways. Like Hazy Little Thing is the biggest hazy IPA in the world, and it's made by Sierra Nevada. And Anchor just did a new rebranding to their whole selves after many years. And New Belgium are still one of my favorite breweries in the world, who make some of the best American sour beers out there. But yeah, I am a self-admitted big English beer, cask beer fan. Kevin hates cask beer. I love cask beer, real ale, milds, bitters. You put one of those in front of me, and I'm going to love every second of it. So
I just like carbonation. I like the flavor of cask
I like
beer,
carbonation too,
but I just like carbonation. I'm a carbonation freak.
Something to tickle your fancy, huh?
We called Kevin the carbonation Nazi when he was working with us at our first brewery because it was all sensory at that time. I think he was the one that convinced the owners to get a Nagel. So for a while we were just carbonating in the bright tank, and we'd pass a glass around, and he would go, nope, needs more, until the point where it was champagne.
And it also could not be packaged. Yeah. Listen, that's why I ended up going to a Belgian brewery, guys.
So let me ask you a question then. Father Christmas, right? I think there's one of the beers that you guys are very familiar with. I guess for the listeners, it's your Christmas ale at Barrel of Monks, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, I don't know what the Christmas ale is at Copper Point. So
I don't think they have
coffee
one.
Nice.
lager.
No, they don't believe in Santa
we don't
Claus.
have.
But Father Christmas does not. Father Christmas does not have a high carbonation level. It has a high. That's a journey beer for me. I like journey beers. When I taste it, I get one flavor the first time round. Then I have another sip. I get something else. The third sip, I get something else. After 3 sips, I should be able to understand what that beer is all about. Father Christmas is one of those ones that I really like. And thank you very much, Kevin, for sending me one.
Well, I'll make sure I get you another one next year. Wow, they're actually brewing it relatively soon because it has a long fermentation time. Joel can probably tell you about that. But, it's funny you said that. Is you sound a lot like the people that I talk to in this industry, with Joel and Mike, and loving these classic styles and not thinking of it as a derogatory word and really enjoying it. There's a friend that we have that has been in the industry down here for a long time, and he always talks about an English bitter and how he just wants to make an English bitter. Yeah. And sometime I'm going to make an English bitter, and I'm never going to sell it, but I'm going to make an English bitter. So we're definitely on the same train when it comes to that and those clean classic styles. I will say that I am, we haven't gone around saying what we're all drinking. You did mention what you have, Phil, but I don't know if you can see this on the camera, but I got a little wicked googly going on.
All right.
So this is, for those of you who don't know, this is a collaboration between Riverlands and Hopvine. That is also a collaboration with the Brit and Yankee. And it is an English barley wine, and it is freaking delicious. It is everything a barley wine should be. It is not overly sweet. It is not overly hoppy. It is malty. It is well balanced. It gives all these nice flavors of molasses and brown sugar and complex layered flavors. It's a malt-only beer. You can tell it when you drink it. And this is the kind of thing that really gets me going. With all the crazy beers that we brew from time to time, the things that I'm always really proud of is those malt-forward, straightforward beers. And I knew you were a traditionalist from our previous conversations, from some of the nice compliments you've given to our beers in the past, which are, it's good for a beer with cherry and cocoa nibs, or it's good for a raspberry beer. And I really always appreciate that kind of candor. Phil, to move on, what's the most challenging thing for you about doing a podcast about craft beer?
Sounding like I know what I'm talking about.
Well, I just said you sound like a brewer, so
no, I mean, because I'm not a brewer, I'm a consumer, and so I'm very happy to say that I have had co-hosts with me over the years who understand beer. So we had Mark Naskey, who passed away recently. He was great. I mean, he knew the finest detail in a beer. Now I'm doing it with Chuck Fort, who is one of the brewers over at Church Street, and also with Ken McMullen, who is a brewer at Hot Vine Brewing. And those guys add the technical credibility, if you will. When I taste a beer, I don't want to get into the really deep depth of all the different notes that I get. Now, if I have a beer that gives me that journey, I'll let you know. But I most of the time I can't tell the difference between apricot and peach and mango. Those subtle things are gone. Maybe that's my age. But I know when I like a beer, and most of the time, I can be right.
No, I started off as a blogger who was doing beer reviews and was trying to be picking out the details and the nuance in things and be like, it tastes like this, it smells like that, blah, blah, blah. And I just now know, like, when I taste something that I really like, I don't even have to get into like, this is why I like it, but it's just like, it just is. I was in San Francisco a few weeks ago. I was at New Belgium's new brew pub in San Francisco. They had an Italian Pilsner on, and I was like, this is fucking fantastic. And I can't for the life of me tell you what were the flavor profiles in it, but I was like, it was fantastic. I had 3 of them, and it just is good to me. And I don't need to describe that to someone, and neither does anyone else. You like what you like. And I if you want to put a gun to my head and make me describe something, I can do that too, but I'll probably end up biting the bullet at some point, because I'm just like, fuck it, I just like this.
I got to agree with Mike. I'm definitely in that headspace now where I'm so over the notion of like over analyzing. And I mean, I remember a time where I was so new to beer and wanted to dissect everything I was having to understand all the nuances of it, because the average person just thinks that beer is fizzy yellow water. So being introduced to all these new styles and flavors, you really want to get, so you go onto the beer advocate forums and you start doing reviews, and you're talking about the appearance and the mouthfeel and the nose and the taste and, the whole thing. So, I'm so much for simplicity now, especially being in South Florida, where we are just inundated with adjunct after adjunct after adjunct. And it pushes me so much more toward simplicity and quality rather than gimmickry and hype and trends and all that. I so much rather would sit back with a simple beer and enjoy its simplicity. And I feel like there's a lot of complexity to be found in simplicity if you're looking for it.
Yeah, it's funny because we have so much of the adjunct age. If that's not a thing, I'm making it a thing now. The adjunct age, or age of adjunct, because
great
those
craft
things
beer movie
have...
you just named right there. The Age of Adjunct.
It's right after the age of Aquarius. But so many of those beers are packed full of like stuff that what are the flavor profiles that you can come up with them for them? Like, oh, this cocoa nib coconut coffee imperial stout. What's it taste like? Well, cocoa nibs, coffee, and coconut. And your fruited sours, overly fruited sours, like this has mango, pineapple, and strawberries. Well, yeah, I get them all. Nothing else. There's acidity, but then like it's almost like that it ruined nuance to be able for me to pick it out and want to talk about it. But it's has made my flavor profile even stronger, and just like I appreciate the nuance. I don't want to talk about it, but I love it, and I'm gonna just keep on enjoying it.
I saw.
Oh, you were going to jump in there. I thought Phil was going to jump in there. I saw that earlier.
Yeah, I was going to ask you guys a question, and that is that if you had and this is a question that we sometimes ask all the brewers, if you had a choice to brew something with no regard for cost, but anything you wanted to brew, what would be the brew that you would do? What's the brew you would do? Hey,
Joel.
I mean, the cost angle of that question is kind of a non-factor to me because I find it to be very simple, but probably an improved upon version of my previous brown ale that I was very proud of and did very well for me. And I know Kevin really enjoyed. The first iteration I did of it was very expensive. I went to Whole Foods and bought every pecan in the building because I was trying to make this kind of pecan nut brown ale. I wanted to improve upon something we had done at a previous brewery that was loaded with nuts and pecans, and I put every goddamn pecan in this thing. I think I soaked it in some, like I crushed a bunch of them and soaked it in some sort of nut liqueur or something like that. And we were a brew pub, so I toasted them in the oven. I mean, I went all out.
For those of you who don't know, that was the cause of the Great Pecan Shortage of 2012. I don't know if you guys know about this up in Chicago, but it was a big thing down in Florida.
Yeah. And I want to ask a question. Were the nuts in the brewery or in the beer?
The front of the house, they were in the front of the house.
Okay.
And then the back of the house, it was just in the beer. But yeah, it was definitely a costly beer to make initially. And that, before I took the nuts out of it, because in the final product, you couldn't even really tell. I mean, they didn't come across, but I had to tell people it was a nut brown ale, in case there were any allergies or anything. But I miss that beer. It brown ale is it's like a soul food version of beer to me. It's full, kind of high medium to full bodied and kind of creamy in a way, just very nurturing and something you could just sit back and relax with and not think too much about, but really get a lot of depth and flavor.
Aye, up north, lad. We'd like a nice brown ale. Aye.
Mike, what would you brew?
When he first asked the question, I think like Joel, my first inclination was to go to, what's the most expensive beer that I can make that I'm going to really like? But that might not necessarily be the one that I just want to make all the time. And having Joel go first gave me some time to just rein things in and come up with my answer. I'm just going to go with a dark mild. I love dark milds. They're this oxymoronic look and feel of things, that they're dark in appearance, but they're so easy drinking because they're low ABV and they're light to medium bodied and they're so punched full of flavor. I could drink a mild all day long, and I would make mild all day long if I could and not go out of business.
Ring my bell. Ring my bell, man.
We got bells going off over here.
I grew up drinking mild. I tell you, I used to drink 6 or 7 pints of it a night when I was young. Fantastic.
Well, it's my turn now. So I'm going to cheat. I'm going to give you 2 because that's the kind of person I am, and I can go last. A red ale, a nice Irish red, not a hoppy red, a nice malty red. It's one of my favorite styles. I made one at the first brewery I worked at. I made one at the second brewery I worked at. I made one at the third brewery I worked at, and I just love a big malty. It's very similar to a brown ale to me, is that it's rich, it's full flavored, it's low in ABV, and it's nourishing, nurturing. I think at some point Joel used some of those words, I think is wonderful. But if I had to really go down to it, a Dortmunder. I love the Dortmunder style. I love a slightly more malty lager. That can be layered and complex, but still be clean and refreshing. One of my favorite brewers in South Florida, I always go back to this, Matt Manthe over at Odd Breed Brewing, made one of the best Dortmunders I've ever had in my life, one of the best beers I've ever had when he was working at Brewsies, and made me fall in love with the style and try to try different Dortmunders from different breweries, and that would be a great thing to brew. And I also want to throw out, Joel, the second we have an open tank, brew your brown, man. You have my blessing.
Oh wow, no Belgian yeast.
Well, no, you have to use Belgian yeast for Barrel of Monks brewing. But if you brew it cold enough, you can mute some of that flavor and you can do what you want. But I'd love to have a nice Belgian brown. We've done a couple of them at the brewery before that were good, but not perfect.
Hey, you know what you're going to call it too?
What's that?
Not like with your IPA. What was it called? Just because we can. Was that
just
what
to
it
prove
was?
a point. Just to prove a point. Yeah.
Just to prove a point. Yeah. Now you can say just because Phil says so.
So, Phil, I want to talk a little bit about the beer scene in your area because you talk a lot about how you kind of stay away from the city, the outlying area, the suburbs. You took me to some great breweries, and I wish I was writing them all down because I have it in front of me. Riverlands, you took me to, had some great beers that I really, really enjoyed. I love Church Street. Is there anything going on in your neck of the woods that really excites you? Breweries that you're really passionate about? Tell us some stuff about your neck of the woods.
Well, it's kind of interesting that we are where I'm living. It's close to a river called the Fox River, and we have 5, maybe 6 breweries in a very, very small area. One of
What's
them
the
is
town that you're in, or
I'm in West Chicago. West Chicago. Sorry, when we moved into West Chicago,
too much?
the guy who's driving the moving van said, "Where are you going today?" I said, "West Chicago." He says, "West Chicago, man, it's a great place." He was a Mexican guy. It's got a high Hispanic population. Anyway, we're close to Wheaton. We're close to St. Charles, Geneva along the Fox River. We have several breweries here that have just opened up. It's a plethora of breweries. The ones that I really like are the ones that are easy to go into and easy to drink at, kind of, got a friendly atmosphere. Some of them are a little bigger. They've got restaurants attached to them, and the vibe isn't that fantastic. Some of the breweries that I'm excited about down here are Art History, because they do a great job in brewing their beers. In fact, they have one of their beers was the Lent Fasten beer, which came out around the Lent time frame, and it's a beer that is they called it a Franconian dark lager, and we tasted it. It's a little bit like the Rausch beer, but a little bit more mouthfeel and a little less smoky. And they brew it around Lent time because, as they say, liquids do not break the fast. So that got a 98 in the Craft Beer and Brewing magazine just recently. And I just like to say that the Brit and Yankee, 3 months ahead of that, said this was the best beer they tasted for a long time. But, I don't want to toot my own horn too much.
Don't you?
There you go. And then some of the other places that I really like, there are some breweries that are downstate in Illinois that are just kicking ass. There's one that's called Riggs Beer Company, and they are in Urbana, Champaign-Urbana area. They're actually in Urbana. And they have something like 400 acres of farmland because they were farmers beforehand, and they grow their own barley and they grow their own corn and they put it into their beer. They have made one of the best Hefeweizens that I've tasted for a long time. And there are a couple of guys, one who trained in Germany, there are a couple of brothers, one who trained in Germany, and they're making superb beers. One of the best places I've been to is a very off-the-grid brewery, about 3 hours south of where we are, which is about an hour south of Chicago, in a place called Georgetown, Illinois. And it is Big Thorn Brewing. And the couple who bought 17 acres there have created this fantastic off-the-grid brewery. He created the brewery in a small area. He created his fermentation room in a berm. He dug it into the earth. He has a fantastic tree bar, and a lot of their beers don't use hops. So a lot of them are gruits. They use rice in their beer. They have a lot of herbs that they put into their beer. But one of the things that he does is he chars wood from his lot that he has, hickory, oak, all sorts of other different types of, and he adds it to the beer in the fermentation stage and creates this very subtle woody feel to some of his beers. Absolutely fantastic. And they're almost equal, I think, to Scratch Brewing. I think you guys probably heard of Scratch Brewing in Ava. They do a lot of beers that they include ingredients from that they forage. So things like mushrooms and
they're a big saison brewery, right?
They do
Farmhouse
saisons.
ales.
Yeah, they do wacky stuff. They add adjuncts from the forest. That's all I can say. They go out foraging and they find this stuff and they add it to their beers. So they're kind of similar to that. And that's the sort of thing I like. I like a beer that takes a risk, has an adjunct that isn't the normal adjunct. And kind of you go, wow, I want to taste this mushroom beer with morel mushrooms or something like that. And, you know, there's a couple of other cool places downtown that are doing some good stuff that, I mean, everywhere you go. And I think, Joel, you just recently came back to Chicago, right?
Yeah.
Where did you go when you came back?
So I did not get a chance to go to any breweries while I was there. Wasn't there for the best occasion, but
yeah, so I heard.
Yeah, but when I was there, what was it? December 2019, I finally got to check out some breweries and really enjoyed Metropolitan. Great lagers. I was so incredibly impressed that there wasn't a single hoppy beer on tap, that there was no, I mean, I love coffee beer. They had 2 coffee beers on Nitro. One was a Doppelbock and one was an Oktoberfest, I want to say. Very hospitable, great people. You know, they knew I was coming and you know, I was friends with somebody, you know, who brews there. So they told me to come out and they hosted us and really took care of us. It was great. Really enjoyed all the crazy stuff going on at Off Color Brewing in the city, at the Mousetrap. John Laffler's doing amazing things there. I got to go to Beguile. Dovetail was closed the day I was there, but fortunately they ship beer to Florida now. So I went and bought 1 can of literally everything they offered. And I think the thing that just impressed me the most was that the culture seemed so much more evolved. And I know there's the hype trendy breweries out there as well, but it just felt like the breweries I visited really had that touch of like blue collar, hardworking, high quality Chicago vibe to it. And everyone was so wonderful and the beers were just fantastic.
We've got to get you up there, Joel. And what I want to ask you, Phil, because you're one of my connections up there, who does Barrel of Monks and maybe Copper Point? Maybe we can do a 3-way collaboration. That sounds kind of sexy. Who do we need to do a collaboration beer with up there?
Interesting. Wow. Well, I mean, you could pick Church Street, but we've done that.
and that is nothing to say. Yeah. Church Street, I love everything that I've tried from Church Street, and I love doing the collaboration beer with them. We have a connection with Lisa's daughter working in our tasting room for a while. But just in general, who else do we want to go up there and really kind of get to know better and maybe do a collab?
Yeah, I mean, I think if you head out to Art History and Riverlands, that will be fantastic. I'd love Ken and Hot Vine. Hot Vine is one of these places that's a restaurant as well. And Ken makes some superb beers. In fact, I have a Belgian triple that he added rum raisin to, and it increased the sweetness of the triple. The triple, I think, is rivaling Victory's Brew. What is it? Brew Monkey? No, what's that one?
Golden Monkey.
Golden Monkey, right. He calls his Brew Monkey. And he added rum raisin to it, and it just takes it up to that level that you go, wow, this is sweet, but not over sweet, and it's just excellent. So it depends what kind of style you want to make, really. If you want to make a lager, I can hook you up with a lager place, which is Art History.
Well, mostly I'm just very interested in going up there and doing something else and getting in that market because I really like, and just like Joel said, I love the craft beer market up in your neck of the woods. And just to get an excuse to send him up there and get a chance to go around and maybe hang out with you and drink a few beers, I think that would be a cool thing.
Kevin, Kevin, can you send me up there too?
You don't work for me, so I can't do that.
But can you?
I can tell you to go,
Well-
but I'm not paying for your ticket. That's the one. That's where I draw the line, Mike. That's where I draw the line.
I got a question. I got a question for you though, because you guys having some surge in the COVID again down there in Florida.
Yes.
At least that's what we hear. Are you able to bring? Do you have to bring in any more restrictions? Because here they're saying, okay, for indoors, wear a mask, even if you're vaccinated.
Our governor is not going to force us to do anything. And in fact, is basically saying go out and lick every doorknob you can find. I believe that's part of his platform.
Especially his. He wants us to lick his doorknob.
So yeah, there's nothing going on down here. Funny enough, you said that.
Yeah.
My 3-year-old, we got an email last night saying that there was someone that was exposed to COVID, that was COVID positive in his classroom. And now my son has to stay home for the next 10 school days. And myself and all the other parents are completely inconvenienced, and we got to figure out ways to make that work. So yeah, things are not going great with COVID in our neck of the woods right now.
Okay.
And it's a little bit of a shame. And we wish we weren't dealing with it. But it is a new reality that we have, I believe.
Yeah. Well, how about Brewfest? Because I'm going to be serving at a Brewfest on first one for probably 18 months on Saturday. And then we have a couple of big festivals coming up at the end of August. There's Beer Under Glass down at the Garfield Conservatory, which is a very big beer festival for the Illinois Craft Brewers Guild. And then the next day, there's Naperville Ale Fest, which is another one of the big ones. They have a summer one and a winter one. And because your winter ones would be nice and sunny, but our winter ones are cold and chilly. So this is the summer one. So how are beer fests coming up? Are they getting open now?
Guys, what are you guys seeing?
I've seen them coming back. I know they did Jupiter Craft Brewers Festival as normal this past late January, correct? And I just saw like this Lager Fest in Miami. The things I'm seeing don't seem as packed with people as they normally would be, but it looks like they're getting back to it. I mean, like Kevin said, the state's wide open, and we're kind of it's like hurricane season, except all year round, where when hurricane season happens and hurricanes come, like it's just a third world banana republic. Everybody's on their own. Everyone's fighting over plywood and cans of tuna fish. And it's kind of the same thing here. Like, with the pandemic, it's like you're on your own, do what you want. I just 2 hours ago came from my daughter's middle school orientation assembly, and they packed hundreds and hundreds of people into the gymnasium. And there was no distancing, no nothing. So I imagine things are just going to continue as is. And you go to a lot of beer fests when you're early into beer and you're curious and want to try as many new things as possible. And once you make beer for a living and drink your fair share of it, you're kind of over all that stuff and occasionally have to work those festivals. But, I imagine the three of us here aren't really attending many unless we're working them. So it definitely seems like they're getting back to normal, but like I said, it's kind of a free for all, and nothing seems totally super busy and slammed and packed, but I imagine we'll be there soon.
It's, you mentioned Jupiter, and when they announced they were doing things this year kind of as normal, they say that they cut down the amount of attendees. My boss is a good friends with the organizer, and he has never not been to a Jupiter in his It makes sense. Trust me, Kevin. And I told my boss, I'm like, I'm going to be honest. I don't feel comfortable doing something like that. And he's like, I don't either. And he's like, this is going to be the first time that I don't attend one of these. We had beer still there. We had our distributor pouring beer for it. But I felt like I was getting a little bit better and being more okay with things like a month or two ago. But now this whole turn in things has fucked it all up for me again. And like I was in San Francisco a couple weeks ago and in Northern California, and it was just fucking great because I know like they have high vax rates, and it was great to be out and about and doing things again, and to come back and be like, hey, Florida accounts for almost a quarter of all cases.
We're basically a petri dish at this point.
Yeah.
I mean, that's where we are. We're a barometer for the rest of the country.
So my other question is, we never got to find out. Kevin asked the question, but we never found out what you guys were drinking as you're drinking it out of the can, which is abhorrent to me.
Take that, co-hosts.
This is just sparkling water. But
not a seltzer.
What I had in the glass before I just finished it now was Glenmorangie, A Tale of Cake, which is their single malt scotch aged in dessert wine barrels, casks.
Fancy.
Very nice. I thought this was a beer podcast.
It's a beverage podcast.
Beverage.
Yeah. You know, the thing is this. I was at the grocery earlier after this anxiety-ridden, overcrowded orientation I mentioned. And then I go to the grocery store to get things for dinner. And I need to use the restroom right before, I do my shopping. I'm not saying that as like I always do. It came out like that. But
stand by.
In this particular instance, I had to go to the restroom first, and that's right by like all the checkout aisles. And there was a woman just screaming at another woman. I don't know what it was about. It was just this loud verbal altercation. And in Florida, we have like stand your ground laws. These things can escalate. If you've got a gun, like, so I'm like, oh Christ, here we go. I go into the bathroom. I can hear the screaming in the bathroom. I can hear the screaming over the sound of the hand dryer I'm using. I walk back out there. The screaming is still going on. Now they're threatening to call the police and everything. My anxiety is just like shooting through the roof. I'm like, I just want to get my shit and get out of here. So I needed a little bit more of a stiff drink than just a beer this evening. But I do have the Lord as well.
Oh, fucking horrible.
Mike, what are you drinking?
I just finished our new hazy double IPA that we put out this week.
Did you design that?
My dog does not agree. CG IPA. It is Citra Galaxy Idaho 7, 8% IPA. Tastes a lot like orange flavored sticky icky gummies.
I actually I took issue with the description you put out the other day in a very Mike-esque way of finding fault in things, because it said something about it's anything but computer generated, and I was like, well, if it's anything but computer generated, why is it CGI? Why isn't it practical? Why isn't it practical effects IPA?
I don't know.
I guess you're not on the marketing team.
The dog agrees.
Nugget's not happy with this. Joel's not happy with this. We're having problems, guys. We're having real problems. You know what, Joel? You just reminded me, and Phil, you jumped on this, and I know we're getting a little bit long in the tooth in this podcast.
I want to say something about the attack on me drinking out of a can.
I thought he meant me.
Okay, listen. It's an open forum, my friend. Please go ahead.
Sorry, I had to calm the dog down. The can is a vessel to consume out of, and I think that there is a time and place for drinking out of a can, out of a bottle, especially with something that you have had many times and you enjoy. there are certain beers that I'll probably never drink out of it, like a saison, or some Belgian style beers. But I've had Sierra Nevada Pale Ale a billion times, and someone hands me a can or a bottle of that, I don't need to put that into a glass. I know what that tastes like. I know what it smells like. I know the whole sensory thing, but for things that I have all the time and that I've enjoyed, I'm drinking out of a can. I'm not going to dirty up a glass for it and then have to clean the glass because I clean all of my glassware by hand, and I just am lazy.
I'm just waiting for Phil's response. Phil, go ahead. Fight with my best friend.
I have nothing else to say.
Okay.
I have been put down just like the dog.
Okay. So earlier on, more than once, Joel has taken a small little plastic bottle of Malort and put it on our screen so we could all see it. Phil, you talk like a brewer, right? Even though you don't work in the avenues that we do, you're talking about classic styles, the things you love, really appreciating non-adjunct beers, wanting to just drink a beer and not necessarily all these things that we agree with, right? Not only are you a passionate craft beer consumer and in and around the industry, you're also from the Chicago area, which means that you must love Malort. Because every single person in the craft beer industry and every single person that has any kind of tie to Chicago, whether they flew over it once, apparently loves Malort. I'm going to give you a minute and a half to tell me what you think about Malort.
2 words. Fuck no. Okay,
that is a lot shorter than a minute and 30 seconds.
I'll tell you. I first had Malort when I went into a brewery. It's kind of like one of these Chicago bars. It's a cross between a microbrewery and a Chicago neighborhood bar called Luna Brewing. And I go in there, and the guy behind the bar, he's been there forever. They call him the Kaiser. The Kaiser says, I go in with Mark, actually, Martin Esky. I go in there. He says, oh, yeah, how are you doing? Oh, you're a friend of Mark. You've got to have a shot of a Malort. That's the rule. Okay, fine. I'll taste it. And after that, I'd never had another shot of Malort because it tastes like ass. Okay.
I believe this is now the first time on this podcast that Joel is in the minority on the liking of Malort by a lot, because our former co-host Phil, other Phil. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm not allowed to say his name on the show anymore. Will, he loves Malort as well. Kevin and I do not like it. So now we have a super majority.
Listen, I'm underdog from day one. I don't get it.
It is the most bitter grapefruit peel soaked in gasoline.
Wow, yeah.
Good way to describe it.
And you know what? For those who can't see, but I can, Joel is also in the minority because he's wearing a Cubs hat.
I knew it was going to go here. It's getting juicy, guys.
You know what? He didn't burn it after the fire sale. Good for him.
You know what? I went to the last game before the Wednesday. I went to the game. They sold Rizzo on the Thursday, and then the rest of the people on whenever it was. Yeah. So I saw Rizzo. Hey, cool.
So what you're telling me, guys, and Joel, just with your body language, is that if you do go up to do a collaboration with a brewery outside of Chicago, you will not be having a beer with Phil.
Oh, no. Well,
you won't be having a Malort with Phil.
I'll be having a Malort seltzer chaser with Phil. And in my defense, and I know this is blasphemous, but I was actually raised on both teams because first I was, I'm from north suburbs, so naturally should be a Cubs fan. However, my parents really wanted me to see Comiskey Park before they tore it down and opened the new one. So I've got a picture downstairs on my fridge of the stadium, and the sign in the outfield said like our last week in this grand stadium or something like that. So I was there for the final week, and ended up being a fan of both teams. And then I moved here, and everyone's like Cubs or Sox, and I'm like, what do you mean? Like, I just want to go back to Chicago. I don't give a shit what team. Like, it'll be, it could be the Chicago, whatevers. I don't care. So I actually, I don't like. Cubs were my first, so I'm slightly more partial to them. My brother is a big Sox fan, but I'm not militantly loyal to either.
You know my team, don't you? Brighton and Hove Albion.
And what sport is that, Phil?
That's it. That's in the world sport. That's in football. That's a real game. Okay. Not American, not American cricket.
Or the Eagles.
Oh yeah.
Well, guys, I think we're getting a little bit long here. Mike, do you want to go into last calls? Are we around that time yet?
We have one more traditional question for our guests. I don't know if Mike wants to. Mike's pretty good at asking it.
Joel, this is your question. You created it. It gave you a heart attack, and now it's yours forever.
Okay, Phil. So
how many points do I get for this?
All the points.
Okay.
So basically, and this may not apply. I mean, not everyone dines at this fine establishment, but we do ask of all of our guests. You've had let's say a few pints of cask Rausch beer, and you spot a Taco Bell on the way home, and you pull into the drive-thru. What is your to-go order, or go-to order rather?
Taco Bell. Holy crap! That's almost ranks up alongside Jepson's Malorts in my book. But if I had,
Phil will never be coming back to the show. Apparently,
if I had to say a Taco Bell, I go with a burrito of some sort because they're easy to eat when you're driving. It's just like it's like a cigar, fat cigar. You can just stick it in and enjoy whatever the hell they put in it, whether it's meat, beans. I don't know what the hell they put in there. Hey, I got my own bell. Thank you.
Well, for a non-Taco Bell consumer, that's a goddamn good answer.
Thank you.
It's a practical answer. It's a realistic answer. And now I have a goal for you, Joel. When you go up and you do a collaboration beer and you're hanging out with Phil late night having some good beers, you're going to take him to the Taco Bell drive-thru and see if it actually happens in practice.
No, I really appreciate the practicality of that answer. And I may have avoided the heart attack had I not spilled a Nacho Bel Grande on my leg and then eaten it as I drove off my leg.
Kevin, does Joel have a company card?
I have a business card.
He has
credit card.
No, not at this point. Do I need to keep one away from him?
No, I'm just saying, like, if you see that Taco Bell order on that card from that trip, could be fun. Just post that.
But you won't see much from me.
Twitter.
I can tell you that.
All right. So what are we doing last year, gentlemen?
So Phil, we usually end our show with what we like to call last call, and it is a point in the show to where we give each other a moment, unspecific amount of time to spout off about what they would like. You can praise something, you can shit on something, you can plug something. You get to plug your show later on anyway. So just it's unopposed, uninterrupted amount of time. So Phil, here's your last call.
All right. Well, thanks. Hey, first of all, I want to say thank you very much, guys, for allowing me to come on. It's been an absolute blast. It's fun doing these shows and chatting with other people about beers. But what I've found is that it's actually the same no matter where you go. Most people like good beer. And as we always say, drink what you like. Okay. If you like those milkshake IPAs, if you like those hazy IPAs, whatever you like, just drink it, because it's bringing in a whole load of revenue to breweries around the country, and the craft beer industry is big now. I mean, you know that. So just go ahead and enjoy your local. Okay, find a local that you can come into, have a beer, enjoy, and say, I'll be back. Thanks a lot. Cheers. That's it. I'm done, boys. I'm short on this one.
Love that.
Awesome.
Love that. Support that with every bit of my being.
Yeah.
You know, I'll hop in here real quick and do mine. You know, 2 weeks ago, I had a very different outlook on what our world was like right now. But I do want to say, when things start getting better, because they will. I want to be an optimist. I'm trying to change my ways into being an optimist and not a pessimist. You know what? What Phil said about your locals, go check them out. And not necessarily even breweries. Check out your local dives, your local restaurants, your local establishments, the ones who were always there for you. Go and be there for them, because they need you. They need you probably a lot more than you need them. But when you feel safe, when you feel secure, when you feel that it is comfortable to go to them, tip them really well. Buy rounds for friends, buy rounds for strangers. I don't care, because we need dive bars in this world. We need good bars in this world. We need bars that have been around for decades and generations to be around. Restaurants, whatever, all of them are important to us and to our establishment and to our lives, if you're a drinker and such. But you know what? Go show your support to those people, because they really need you after all of this time. And I'm sure that they'd be happy to see you. And if they're not, then whatever. But I'm sure that they will be. Joel.
So I've decided that I really don't like when singers laugh during their songs.
What?
So, as I said earlier, I'm in the grocery, and as if Mike and the Mechanics in the Living Years wasn't, wrist slashing, inspiring enough. Whitney Houston's "I Want to Dance with Somebody" came on, and great vocals. I mean, I think she's one of the, I think it's like Aretha and then Whitney, Mariah, Adele kind of tied for second as far as vocalists go. However, there's a point in the song where she's just belting it out and then laughs. And the same thing happens with Marlena Shaw in California Soul. I know Janet Jackson does it in, I want to say, Escapade. I could be wrong. But it's like, if you laugh like that, do another take. I know you're enjoying it. I know it. You got to be having a blast making all this money, recording music, doing what you love. But I don't know. Maybe it's just my general disdain for other people's joy, but I don't want to hear you laughing while you're recording this song. I mean, like, if I'm a music producer and I'm recording you, no matter how great you are, if you start laughing during the track, I'm going to cut and start over. Like, let's take it from the top. So chill with the laughing, stick to the singing, and yeah, that's about it.
Mike talks too much about his shopping habits.
Okay, I'm just going to jump in here because I'm the last one here. That look inside of Joel's brain might have been my favorite thing of the week. That small little sliver that got in his brain and made him go, well, I'm going to talk about this. Joel, I love you. With all my heart, I love you, my friend. I really enjoyed that. I don't want to follow that. I don't, but I have to do a last call. And I'm going to bring it all down because that was funny and gorgeous. Get your goddamn vaccines. Get your vaccines. Wear your fucking masks. And let's all get out of this whole thing together. For the love of God. And I know we're just a craft beer podcast, and most of the people listening to this are probably going to go, well, of course, yeah, I got my freaking vaccine and I wear my mask when I go out in public. And there are a few people that now think, oh, great, the United We Drink podcast is being paid off by the Biden administration. Probably not true.
Here's my check.
I'm not sure, Mike. You let me know. But just get your goddamn vaccine and wear a mask in public so that we can send our kids to daycare and we can go out to these bars that Phil and Mike are talking about and support them and find those places. For the love of God, it is the most simple inconvenience you can possibly ever have. So just do that. And you're not going to listen to me because why should you? But still, let's just go ahead and do that, guys. Can we all agree? Okay,
Yeah.
Thank you.
Hey, big shout out to Olympic Tavern in Rockford, Illinois. Fucking good people on fucking Twitter. I've never been, but the next time I get to be in that area, they are the first place that I'm fucking going to because I love them and they are good people. And yeah.
All right.
Cool. I love you guys. You guys are great. You got Kevin, who's your cheerleader. You got Mike, who's the middle of the road, and Joe. Joe, come on, man. Things are not that bad. Fuck's sake, you make great beer. You should be happy with that.
Joel,
Fucking awesome
things are
beer,
not
dude.
that bad.
Oh man.
Fucking A, dude. We need to make and a collaboration beer. Joel, things are not that bad. Should be the name of the beer.
That's the name of this episode.
Joel, things are not
Pulling
you
up my
where-
notepad now.
I'll tell you where I'm going for lunch tomorrow. Taco Bell.
I think that's where we should end it.
Well, listen, guys, it was great to do this. Phil, thank you so much. It was a blast. It was good to see your face. Good to talk with you. You do have to come down to Florida when things get more normal and
Next
hang
year.
out with the three of us. We'll grab some freaking great beers at Barrel of Monks. We'll swing by Copper Point. I mean, just so you know, you're going to be pampered, my friend. You're going to have some great beers out of the cellar. We're going to have a freaking ball because you showed me such a freaking good time in Chicago. I got to tell you, I have to equal that down here, just so you know.
I like a good pampering.
Don't we all?
Oh, yes, rather. Hey, and at the end of our shows, we have a last call. Last call. Come on. Get home to your wives. Haven't you had enough? Get home. Get out of here. Come on.
Thank you so much.
That's
Phil.
awesome, man. Well, Phil, have yourself a good night. Thanks for doing this thing. And hopefully I'll talk to you soon, man.
Cheers. All the best. Thanks very
All right.
much, guys. Yeah, I'd love to come down again.
All right. Good night, guys.
Cheers.
Cheers.
All right. Bye.
Thank you once again to Phil Clark for coming on the show. I did tell him he was going to get an opportunity to plug his show, and then we never gave it to him. So I am going to plug his stuff right here for you. This podcast is called the Brit and Yankee Craft Beer Podcast, Pubcast. Their website is the Brit, BRIT, and Yankee.com. They are on all of the major podcast services, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, Google Podcasts. You can find them there. They are on Twitter at Brit with 1T _and_ Yankee. They are also on Instagram at Brit and Yankee Pubcast. And they're also on Facebook. So go and find our friends and support them. If you really enjoyed listening to Phil, go and listen to their over 360 episodes that they have right there. If you even include our previous incarnation of the podcast, we don't even reach that many. So kudos to them. They are one of those early adopters to the podcast servicing. So cheers to them. You can follow the show at United We Drink on Twitter, at United We Drink Pod on Instagram. Our website is unitedwedrink.com, and you can find us on all of those fine podcasting networks as well. You can follow Joel at Joel Brews on Twitter. Sometimes he is right now. As of this moment that I am saying this, he is. He might not be when you listen to this. He's at Florida, D-U-H, Brewer on Instagram. I am at Mike Loves Beer on Instagram and Twitter. Kevin does not use social media, so don't worry about that. But you can also check out our sponsors. UnitedWeDrink.com/sponsors, our website. We have a ton of awesome sponsors to show some love to. If you buy things from them using those links on our site, it goes and supports this show. It pays for our hosting pretty much, so we don't have to. We have a store as well, UnitedWeDrink.com/store, where you can buy t-shirts, buttons, stickers, tote bags, coffee mugs, so many different things. Check that out as well if you want to support the show monetarily. Other than that, thank you so much once again for joining us. We'll see you back here in a couple weeks. And cheers.
Yeah, the kids dropped it on the floor, and it was all jacked up when I went to go plug it back in. I thought
New
it was
definition
broken.
of mic drop.
Oh,